In the 1970s, American highways looked completely different from what they do today. The roads were filled with powerful giants featuring their signature flat-faced fronts. These were the legendary cabovers, trucks where the cab sat directly on top of the engine. Back then, industry titans like Freightliner, Mack, GMC, and Kenworth competed in production volume, and these machines were rightfully considered the living symbol of all American logistics. However, try to find such a tractor on modern US roads today, and you won't see a single one. Machines that for decades were the backbone of the world's largest economy have vanished almost without a trace. To understand where they went, one must look at how strict government regulations and engineering ingenuity created this unique format. The history of the cabover dates back to the era before World War II. At that time, the United States had strict regulations. The overall combination length of the truck and trailer could not exceed 65 feet, about 19.8 meters. This restriction was introduced for road safety and infrastructure protection, but for trucking companies, it was a true economic curse. The business logic was simple. The longer the trailer, the more cargo you can carry per trip, and the higher the profit. But since the total length was strictly limited, the only way to increase the cargo space was to radically shorten the tractor itself. Manufacturers found a brilliant solution: the COE, cab over engine design. Engineers effectively got rid of the long hood by mounting the driver's workspace directly above the engine. This allowed them to reduce the front of the vehicle to a minimum, giving every freed up decimeter to the useful space of the trailer. At the time, it was a true efficiency revolution that quickly conquered the market. In addition to compactness, cabovers had another vital ace up their sleeve: phenomenal maneuverability. Due to the lack of a protruding, quote, nose and a short wheelbase, the turning radius of these machines was minimal. In tight ports, narrow city streets, and congested urban logistics hubs, the cabover was unrivaled. By the early 1970s, cabovers had become the absolute kings of the road, working everywhere from short city deliveries to transcontinental hauls. But in 1982, a fundamental shift occurred. The U.S. federal government passed the STAA, Surface Transportation Assistance Act, which completely revised the dimension requirements. From then on, the law limited only the length of the trailer, while the dimensions of the tractor itself no longer affected the overall limits. This legal change instantly destroyed the primary reason for the COE format's existence. There was no longer any need to squeeze into a cramped cab and sit on a vibrating motor just to save a few meters. The market reacted instantly. Manufacturers began mass-producing traditional long-nose conventional trucks again. Now, drivers could have comfort and safety without compromising business, which effectively ended the era of the classic American cabover. The driver's reaction to the legal changes was truly explosive, as decades of cabover dominance had led to a massive list of grievances. Life behind the wheel of a cabover was far from romantic. It felt more like a struggle for survival. Because the cab sat directly on top of the engine, it turned into a literal oven. Heat from the scorching metal rose upward, making the driver's workspace unbearable during summer months. Even a full-blast air conditioner couldn't defeat the heat radiating from the floor. Added to this were horrific noise and vibration. A massive diesel engine was roaring right beneath your feet, and the driver felt every single stroke of the pistons throughout their entire body. After a long haul, truckers would climb out of their cabs completely exhausted, and many developed serious hearing problems over time. The comfort issue was worsened by a catastrophic lack of space. An American long-haul trucker spends weeks on the road, covering thousands of miles, and for them, the cab is an office, a bedroom, and a kitchen all in one. In cabovers, there was simply nowhere to put personal belongings. The situation changed dramatically with the return of long-nose, conventional tractors. The main reason for their triumph was an unprecedented level of convenience. Moving the engine forward under a long hood instantly solved the problems of noise, shaking, and overheating. But the real breakthrough was the emergence of full-sized living quarters, the sleeper. In the new cabs, there was finally enough room not just for a wide bed, but for a compact refrigerator, a microwave, and storage cabinets. In a cabover, to get to the sleeping berth, a driver had to literally crawl through a narrow hole, whereas in a conventional truck, they could just stand up and take 2 steps back. This difference in rest quality, between squeezing into a tight gap and being able to lie down on a full-size bed, could only be truly appreciated by someone who has spent half their life on the road. Operation and maintenance also became significantly simpler. Servicing a cabover was a complex technical operation. Just to check the oil level or inspect components, the entire cab had to be tilted forward on special hydraulic hinges. This process took about 30 minutes and required perfect order inside. Any loose items, whether a coffee mug, documents, or tools, would immediately fly toward the windshield or crash to the floor the moment the cab tilted. In conventional trucks, access to the heart of the machine became elementary. Just pop the hood, which took 5 seconds. For trucking companies, this meant a drastic reduction in downtime. What used to require half an hour of preparation could now be checked in 5 minutes, allowing the truck to get back on the road much faster. However, the most terrifying disadvantage of cabovers was their vulnerability. When it came to safety, the difference between the cab types was fatal. While truck speeds in Europe are strictly limited to 90 kilometers per hour, in the vast plains of the US, tractors often cruise at 130 kilometers per hour or higher. At such speeds, the structure of a cabover left the driver with no chance. In this design, the human sits at the very front point of the vehicle, and in a head-on collision, they are separated from the obstacle by only a thin layer of metal and a panoramic windshield. Effectively, in the event of an accident, the first crumple zone was the driver's own legs and body. In contrast, the classic American tractor with its long nose serves as a shield for the driver. In a crash, the engine and the massive frame of the hood are the first to take the hit, crumpling and absorbing the colossal energy, significantly reducing the risk to the person behind the wheel. At speeds of 130 kilometers per hour, this design feature became a matter of life and death. Soon, the danger of cabovers was recognized not only by drivers, but also by insurance companies, which began to hike premiums for COE owners. Cabovers became not just uncomfortable, but economically unviable due to high insurance risks. Nevertheless, in Europe, cabover trucks still make up the absolute majority. The reason lies in legislation. European Union regulations still strictly limit the total combination length of a truck and trailer to 16.5 meters. To fit within this standard while carrying as much cargo as possible, European carriers are forced to use the most compact tractors available. Furthermore, Europe's geography dictates its own rules. Narrow roads, cities with centuries of history, and sharp turns require the maneuverability that only a short cabover can provide. The speed limits in the EU also play a role. Trucks rarely exceed 90 kilometers per hour, and at these speeds, the lack of hood protection isn't as critical as it is on American highways. Thus, law and environment have shaped two different worlds. An American is surprised by the flat trucks in Europe, while a European is amazed by the endless noses of trucks in the US. By the late 1980s, the decline of cabovers in America became irreversible. Major logistics companies, which used to buy them by the thousands, shifted en masse to conventional models. Demand plummeted, and with it, the resale value of these machines. It became unprofitable for manufacturers to maintain assembly lines for an unpopular format, and by the 1990s, buying a new over-the-road cabover tractor in North America became nearly impossible. Today, this design survives only in narrow niches: fire trucks, garbage trucks, and dump trucks. For work in tight residential areas over short distances, the cabover's maneuverability is still invaluable, and its drawbacks don't have time to manifest during a short shift. Does this mean the era of cabovers in long-haul trucking is over forever? Perhaps not. Today, the industry stands on the brink of a green revolution. Strict carbon emission standards and bans on diesel vehicles in city centers are forcing engineers to find new solutions. Electric and hydrogen trucks are changing the very architecture of the vehicle. They no longer need a massive internal combustion engine under the hood. The transition to electric power eliminates the main downsides of cabovers: the unbearable engine heat, noise, and violent vibration. In a world of electric motors and batteries, the compact cabover design is becoming attractive once again. In the congested urban traffic of the future, small, agile, and eco-friendly cabovers could make a triumphant return, transforming from the noisy ovens of the past into the high-tech gadgets of tomorrow. While electric truck startups are attempting to reimagine this format for urban deliveries, the true legends of the 70s have found their home in private garages and at truck shows. For the vintage machinery community, the cabover is not just an old piece of scrap metal, it is a cult object. At classic truck shows across America, you can find machines restored to perfection, dazzling chrome, authentic period-correct paint, and interiors where every single button has been preserved. Looking at these trucks, road veterans reminisce about their youth, while young collectors marvel at the audacity of the engineering. Thanks to these enthusiasts, the history of the cabover continues to live on far beyond the walls of museums. The revival of interest in retro aesthetics in fashion and design is giving the trucking industry a second chance as well. We are already seeing some manufacturers begin to integrate old-school design elements into their newest models. The story of the cabover is an object lesson in how rapidly the world changes. What was the pinnacle of efficiency and dominated the roads yesterday can become a relic of history today due to a single legislative change. It is a powerful signal to the entire industry. Success is never eternal, and the ability to adapt to new rules of the game is more important than current sales figures. Cabovers have left the American highways, but their legacy is etched into history forever. So, we want to hear from you. Which style of truck do you prefer? Are you a fan of the rugged, maneuverable, old-school cabovers? Or do you prefer the modern, long-nosed kings of the road with their endless comfort? Also, do you think America was right to phase out the cabover? Or was it a mistake that stripped the highways of their unique character? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's settle this.